everybody, my name is Darby. I am going to be starting a YouTube channel, basically kind of talking about some of my favorite reads and doing like a little review slash synopsis of them. I don't know if anybody will actually watch this, but it is going to be really nice to be able to kind of vent out my feelings, kind of talk about them. I'm the type of person that has so many unfinished series, and I write little book reports after I read them so that way I can look back over it before the next release. So this is just kind of it in almost like a video form to me. If anybody is here to like listen to it and hear just kind of the review and like a little bit of a plot review, and then later on I'll do like a spoiler version in it, I'll kind of cut off at a certain point and be like, okay, if you don't want any spoilers, stop here, kind of thing. But if anybody is here to tag along for the ride, well, welcome in. The first book I'm going to be talking about is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. So this is a fantasy novel that is full of many different tropes that I really enjoy. It has dragons, elemental magic with fae, and the way that she describes this elemental magic is absolutely gorgeous. We kind of have a Forgotten Memories dual timeline, and then we also have kind of like a angry to lovers, hatred to lovers. I don't know how to describe it, but we love enemies to lovers in this household. So originally, I did not want to pick up this book simply because I was so intimidated by how big she is. Now, I've read some thick books, but something about it being an incomplete series and it starting out so thick terrified me. But if there's anybody out there that is debating it, I highly recommend it. It is so worth it. The thickness was needed because this world is absolutely beautiful. I wish I could like show you guys my head because it is just gorgeous in here. And we're just gonna kind of talk a little bit about the book itself, and then I'll kind of go into some of my thoughts and feelings about it in a little bit more detail. So in this world, there are 5 creators. There is first Kalis, which is the god of the Aether. He's invisible to the naked eye. He is essentially the god of nothingness. He was kind of forgotten about and not really acknowledged in this. Was seen as unimportant. So there was the god of fire, which is Ignos, the god of air, Claude, the god of water, rain, and then there is the god of the earth, which is Boulder. So these are the 4 main creators that are recognized throughout the series by the Fae. So in this world, there is the burn, the fade, and the shade. So the burn is kind of at the top of the world. The sun is kind of there and mostly shines on this world. In this, that is where the saber scythe's nesting ground is within the burn. And it's just a breed of dragon that can basically withstand this heat. They are a very cunning and smart breed of dragon. The place right under the burn would be the fade, which is like the middle band. So it's between the cold and the hot, so it's the more moderate temperature. This area has the molten maws, which is a feathery dragon. They are able to tolerate the heat or cold to certain extents, no extremes, and they are the more friendly, I guess, of the dragons that can interact with them. They're able to withstand more and they're not so volatile. And then in the shade, which is at the bottom of the world, has the moon plumes. So these are seen as the smartest and most cunning, more cunning than the saber scythes, but they cannot tolerate heat of any kind. And then there's different like coloring variations based on it. I'm not going to necessarily go into here, but in the book, it's all really beautifully described, and I could like really picture them in it. So in this world, the Fae are the reigning beings, and the dragons are beasts that were mostly the beasts of the creators. They kind of roamed freely, and then at some point in the timeline of this world, they would go off into the sky and curl up in a ball and calcify instead of dying there on the ground. And so they became known as the moons. So the timeline for our main character is many, many, many years into it. And so there's many moons that litter the sky. They keep timeline based on the auroras, which is like ribbons that are over the sky. And they basically tell you time for day and night. And then they keep time based on after stone. So in this, at the beginning of the book, basically it describes of all these creators. Kalis, which is the god of the Aether and kind of is forgotten about by the Fae, which we kind of figure out why later. He was kind of jealous of the other creators getting recognized and being able to do all these things that contribute to this world and make it so beautiful and bright and cool, considering that he was just the god of nothing, essentially. And because he was angry, the other gods captured him, put like runes, and instilled him into a diadem. And this diadem was then worn by a Fae warrior that was strong enough to contain it. And this diadem is then passed down through generations in a familial line. So those are our main big points in this. There's a bunch of magical creatures, as well as the dragons in this, like Velvet Trog. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to think of, Uno is a character and he is something, I think it's a Mishun, but I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But yeah, so there's other magical characters or magical creatures, but the dragons are like a pretty big focus in this. So in this, we start out, I think it's 5,000 or 5 million, let me see. 5 million phases, which is years, after stone. So this is after Kalis is captured and put into this diadem in the stone that is worn by the noble family that was able to take over this. It starts out with our assassin main character, Rave, and she is on a mission. She is there to assassinate a pretty predominant, I'm guessing it's a nobleman kind of character. The way that she kind of describes him is that he's important and takes advantage of women in this. But she is an assassin in this group called the Horde of Faith. I'm probably saying that completely wrong, but she's an assassin, part of this. And then there's, at the beginning of the book, which was super helpful, is she has like this glossary of different things of the terms, who the people are, and then what the characters are, and pronunciation guide. And I'm still butchering it, so I'm sorry. But she starts out on this mission, and when she's there, she interacts with the male main character as like a mysterious person that is there, that kind of recognizes her, and he tries to take off the veil on her face, but she plays it off as it's part of her act. So her role as an assassin in this assassin's group is that they are trying to basically take down, or it's almost like a rebellion against the king that is ruling the Fade. So in this, the Fade is ruled by it's Kadak Vager, and then his brother Tyrok is ruling the Shade, and then his other brother Khan is ruling the Burn. So in this entire family, they're all ruling each domain, and they are a tyrannical family. So they are vile people to the Fae. They treat others poorly. We learn that in the Fade, it is common practice for gnolls, which are Fae that are not able to hear the elemental songs, by clipping their ears, and those that can hear elemental songs as children, when they're evaluated, basically get taken away from their parents, shipped off to serve in the military for this Fade. And so you can already kind of get this frame of mind where you kind of are like, okay, this needs to be taken away, obviously, because they're ripping children from their parents just because they have these powers and they're using it against them. And then the gnolls are marked by literally cutting a hole into their ears, so that way everybody knows that they're different and can basically get treated less than. And so throughout this world, you kind of see where it's following Rave and Khan. Rave basically gets kind of taken and taken on this adventure, and you're trying to figure out what her past is like, because Khan recognizes her, and that is the mysterious stranger that she interacts with, that he saw her and was like, I know you, and could not get her out of his head. But in his head, she was dead, so he doesn't quite understand how in the world he's seeing her. And so throughout this time, you're trying to figure out what in the world has happened. What drove these people away? How did we get to where we are now? Why is this chain of events what we believe? And then this is what we actually know to be true. And it is just such an amazing story. It's so detailed. All these characters I felt like an attachment to, and I felt really invested in learning more about. And it just, overall, loved it so much. And I can't wait to see what the next one is gonna be. But yeah, so next little time that I'm gonna talk about, because I can't help myself, is gonna be some spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, kind of stop right there. Okay, so if you didn't want any spoilers, I hope that you left. And if not, leave now, for sure. So I'm gonna proceed. So I'm gonna try and not yap about this as long as I definitely could, because I could try and basically read you the entire book. But through this, the main character is Rave. There is a dual timeline of this character named Elwyn Navon. So Elwyn Navon is a former princess of the Shade. So her mother and father used to rule the Shade, which is the lower half of this world where it's like basically darkness and ice and cold and all of that. That family is the one that was entrusted to protect the Aether Stone by wearing it as a diadem. So this diadem is worn by the mother, passed down the maternal line, so Elwyn is going to be next to get it. It recounts a story of basically this diadem killing her mother. It is draining her of her like life and spirit. She can't really hear the other elemental songs that she could hear before, so basically she can't use her powers. And so we can kind of see this as basically a terrifying weapon, essentially, or not even a weapon, just a terrifying death sentence that this woman has to wear, and then it's going to get passed on to Elwyn. So Elwyn is a 9-year-old in this. Whenever it first begins with the diary entries, she has an older brother named Hayden, and Hayden is off to go get a moon plume egg, and Elwyn tags along. And then it kind of goes back and forth between Rave as the main kind of overarching plot line. Every now and then you get some other characters' POVs, and then Elwyn. So it goes through with Rave. She makes this assassination and is warned by her kind of higher up in this assassination group, like, hey, there's a bounty hunter that is out to try and take out our assassination group. Was hired on by the kings to try and lay low. Whenever the bounty hunter kills someone that she greatly cares about, Rave doesn't care about laying low anymore, and she just wants revenge. So we are introduced to the Other. So the Other is basically like a, I guess, other identity, other being that lives inside of Rave in her mind. So Rave references anytime that she has some kind of like large emotion, her taking it and being like, wrapping it up in a nice little package, popping it in the lake and being like, all right, never to see it again, never addressing it. And that is kind of where the Other dwells, because it mentions like breaking through the icy lake and able to use her powers to an extreme. And Rave isn't really aware of what's going on when the Other takes over. So when her first interaction with the bounty hunter kind of starts to first begin, it's the Other takes it to an extreme, and then Rave wakes back up with the bounty hunter, figures out that she is about to be sentenced to death, essentially. She gets whipped and then brought to a cell. Up in the cell, realizes she's gonna die. So one of her fellow prisoners that's in the cell next to her mentions that she's supposed to go up for trial, where they basically try and figure out how she's gonna die. It's either gonna be by the Colosseum, which is basically where they tie the prisoner up to a stake and let the molten boss, which are the dragons, the feathered dragons that live in this Fade strip area where they're at, and let them eat the person, or some other type of death. I don't know. I think she was wanting to die that way because she didn't want to get eaten to death by a dragon and whatever. It ends up not going in that direction. She ends up being forced to do the Colosseum route, but she gets saved. So Khan is the mysterious stranger that comes and tries to find her and is basically like, I know you, and I'm really confused why you don't know me, and also how you're alive. You shouldn't be alive. Something about this is very weird. Rave has an interaction with a mender who basically says, oh, you know, you have all these scars all over you. She didn't want it to be mentioned to Khan. So it's showing that Rave has this past that she has had many injuries from. She's afraid of fire, so it's got to do something with burning. You kind of don't really get much insight into that in this story. So I can imagine that we're going to see a lot more of it in the next. And what we did see was so tragic and heartbreaking. But so she has these scars and a history, and we also learned that her mind was mended. So we don't necessarily know exactly what that means, but it could attribute to her memory loss and what in the world is happening, because we don't know what is happening. We don't understand if she is this person that she thinks she is now, or if she is somebody that she used to be and like something happened, and it's kind of confusing at first. It follows the timeline. Basically, Khan saves Rave from her death and wants to take her back to the Burn where he is the king. And he has a reputation of just being an evil king that allows his saber scythe, which is a huge dragon, to just eat his people, and has this really bad reputation. So she's obviously not for it, but he kind of doesn't give her the option and decides that he's going to take her back to the Burn, and she's quite confused. Why in the world this is happening? Why does he want me? I don't really know him. I just want to go and get this bounty hunter. And that's pretty much the theme of this book. She's like, I want to kill this man. I don't want to be here with you. I just want to go and kill this bounty hunter. I don't care if it's going to get me killed. I need the revenge because he killed Essie. And that's all that matters to her. And Essie was somebody that she really, really cared about and died. And then this is something that has happened to her in the past, and she just can't forgive it. So throughout the timeline, we're going back and forth and following Elowen's journey. We learn that Hayden got an egg, and whenever he came back, he was caring for it and somehow fell into like a ravine and basically broke his legs. And little Elowen like helps him and tries to care for his egg. There's these there's these creatures that are circling them, and little 9-year-old Elowen is protecting her brother and the egg, and then there's the mother of this egg that's circling overhead, and so it's imminent danger. And Elowen is just basically talking about how she just doesn't want to let her brother die, and that she's gonna let him have his dragon, and they'll go back home and everything will be great. After this, we learn that Hayden's egg didn't get to hatch in the correct way, but she somehow gets the mom dragon, and whenever she gets the mother dragon, she can hear all 4 creators. So she can listen and hear all 4 of the creators sing to her. So air, fire, earth, and water all speak to her, and she can use these powers as soon as she gets in. So she's a very powerful 9-year-old now that's a former princess of the Shade, and they get Hayden back. But then one morning she wakes up and her family is dead. And so she is brought to the Fade and is basically told that she's gonna marry Tyrock, which is one of the current kings now of the Shade, but was now the ruling family, and that she was gonna marry him, basically an arranged marriage, for her to have her kingdom, because she couldn't rule because she was too young. And so she's taken away. She's obviously not happy with this. She didn't want to marry Tyrock, and that was kind of proposed in the beginning, that she was going to have this arranged marriage. And while her parents were alive, her dad was like, no, I'm not going to let that happen to you. But now she basically has no choice because they're dead. So this is me editing it and realizing that I forgot to mention the pretty big point that whenever this happens, when her parents are found dead, she has to don the diadem. So it needs to be worn in order to contain Kalis. So when her mother is dead, she has to don it. And whenever she wears the diadem, she can no longer hear the creators. So she is powerless. She went from being a very strong young child to now finding out that her parents are dead, and she is going to have to wear this diadem, and is now completely stripped of everything that she was so happy to have and feel so powerful, and now everything's taken away from her, and she's possibly going to have to go into this arranged marriage that she never wanted and was fighting for, or fighting against in the first place. But yeah, sorry, I just realized that I never said that, and that's a pretty big point. So that kind of has this tone where she already is very unhappy with her situation. She's powerless. Her mother's dead, and now she has this diadem attached to her head. And it's sucking the life force from her too. She can't hear the creators anymore. She doesn't want to go anywhere. She misses her family. Her dragon had followed her all the way to the Fade and had suffered burns and was now blind, and because it can't tolerate the heat. But her dragon didn't want to leave her, and she's just so sad. But that is where she meets Khan, which is the older brother of Tyrock, and he is very kind to her, and they kind of have this romance that blossoms between them. So Elwyn and Khan start having this romantic journey between them as they get to know each other. She falls in love with him, and it's just a really, really beautiful story. And in the current timeline with Rave, Khan kind of references it and says that he had someone that he cared about, but she's dead now, and that her name was Elwyn. And Rave is kind of like, okay, weird that you're mentioning this to me. So that kind of is going on, and she's being treated very kindly by Khan, and so she's extremely confused. And then Khan interacts with his sister, his younger sister Vea. She sees Rave and is like, what is she doing here? I thought she was dead, blah blah blah. So sorry about the lighting change. I am the literal worst and decided to film this way too late. Anyways, I'm gonna kind of try and wrap this up. So we learned that Elwyn is Rave and Rave is Elwyn, but for some reason Rave believes that she is Rave and does not believe that she is Elwyn. Khan knows that she died. Basically, we kind of find out that Elwyn got pregnant from Khan, and their father figured out and basically told her that she needed to still go and marry Tyrock in order to have her kingdom as it was arranged, and if not, she would hurt Khan, or he would hurt Khan and Vea, who she grew very comfortable with and loved and stuff like that. So she very reluctantly agrees, kind of basically her hand is forced. She goes back there and has Tyrock believe that that is their conceived child. Khan doesn't know about any of this, and that's kind of where Elwyn's story ends, as she goes back to being with Tyrock, at least for the time being, until kind of like late entries that we read later. And during this time, Khan is trying to figure out how he can jog her memory. He tries to show her his basically shrine is the best way I can think to describe it. He had collected the pieces from her broken dead dragon. Basically, when Elwyn died, her dragon came, swooped her up, flew into the sky with her, and died there until her moon fell from the sky. And Khan was trying to piece it back together again, basically in his mourning of her, because he loved her dragon, and was kind of just trying to piece it back together, and then figures out that she wasn't there. But the dragon took off with her, so why in the world is Elwyn not there? So he shows her this, and she's kind of like, well, I mean, she gets flashbacks of like this previous life, and kind of feels like she knows him for some reason and doesn't quite understand why. And in her head, she's like, well, he wants me to be this person. I'm not this person. I just want to be free and kill this bounty hunter for what he did to me and move on with my life. So in her head, she's like, I'll play the part that he wants me to play, and I can be free and get to this bounty hunter. And he loves her so much that he is kind of willing to play this game with her and allows her to pretend that she is Elwyn and whatever, and lets her do her thing. Vea, the sister to Khan, is like, you know what? I remember that Elwyn kept a diary, and I'm gonna try and find that diary, and maybe that'll give us some answers. So Vea kind of takes off on her own journey, and Khan is so wrapped up in figuring out stuff with Elwyn and why in the world she's here and alive, because his niece, Tyrock's child with Elwyn, so basically his daughter that he doesn't really know about, is wearing the Aether Stone, and she came to him and said, I want to get this off. I am in love with Kalis, the god inside. So obviously, some way, somehow, she's able to talk with him, hear him, which is not a thing really in this world that we've seen. They talk to the other creators, and she wants this off. And in his head, he's like, the only way it comes off is through death. But now he has Elwyn, which is Rave, alive and well in front of him. And so he wants to figure out how in the world that was achieved and possibly have that save Kaisari from her fate of dying by this stone. Because he's seen her, sees it draining her and killing her, and wants to get it off. So he's very invested in that. Everybody has their own motives. So Vea wants to figure out what happened with Elwyn, and I think she truly just wants to figure out just what in the world happened, because her friend died and now is back, and it doesn't make sense. Khan wants to do it to save Kaisari and also to have his love of his life back. And Rave just wants to kill this bounty hunter. That's all that she cares about, because he took someone that she loved from her, which is her own right, you know? So it's such an amazing plot put together. There's so many different pieces moving at the same time, and it's so well written. I can't wait for the next book to figure out where we go from here. Rave kind of figures out that, like, okay, I'm Elwyn, but I'm not that person anymore. I am feeling feelings for Khan, and I care about him in a way, and I hate that I care about him, but I still want to kill this bounty hunter, and I want to be allowed to do it and the freedom to do it, and then we can figure out where to go from there. Khan kind of is like, you know what, okay, I will let you do it, but come back to me, come back to us, because this is bigger than you and me. Whether you love me or not anymore, because I still love you. Whether you love me or not, there is more to this than just you being a part of my life. There is someone else that can benefit from you being alive, which is Kaisari, and then we can figure out a way together to get rid of my brothers, because he doesn't support what they do. He's a kind king and kind of like kept this facade that he was an awful ruler to just the other people of like the Fade and the Shade. Only the people of the Burn know the truth, which, you know, great. So he's like, it's more than just you or me, so please come back to us. And so Vea's on her journey, and she finds this journal in the Shade, and she reads basically that she finds out that Kaisari is Khan's and Elwyn's daughter. She's heartbroken about it, and then also figures out like somehow she died in a very strange way. She became very sick. They know that from one of the runes that she was stabbed in the heart, and they believed that she just died because of the stone slash birthing a child. So they were very confused about that. So that's a whole nother element. And they obviously are like, well, I know my brother's corrupt, so I wonder if he's corrupt enough to have killed his wife, because they figured out that Kaisari isn't his or something. Who knows? This is all just me thinking it. It is not canon. It is not anything that's mentioned in the book. It's just kind of where my mind went. But they're kind of like, okay, how did she die? And why? And why did all of this happen? And so Vea's in the Shade when this book ends. Khan has released Rave to go and kill off the bounty hunter and come back. And so we do get the revenge. She does kill the bounty hunter in an epic way, and then we figure out that Kaisari has been captured and is currently in like imprisoned by this other villain entity. I can't remember what they call him, but it is the one that had captured and kept Rave and was torturing her with fire. And it is revealed that he is actually like basically a bastard child of Khan's father. And he believes that he's supposed to be the true ruler of the Burn instead of Khan. And so, what do they call him? The Scavenger King. So the Scavenger King was one that tortured Rave, now has Kaisari, and is like, I'm the true ruler of the Burn, not Khan. And so there's so many different points to this that are coming together. So Rave is gonna have to revisit her past in her past life as Elwyn, but also in her current life with the Scavenger King in order to save Kaisari and figure out a way to get that Aether Stone off of her, possibly release Kalis like Kaisari is wanting. Vea needs to figure out a way to get out of Tyrock's land and come back unscathed to Khan to figure out how to take him down and to just do all these things. And the entire time it's just you're kind of on the edge of your seat and wanting to keep going, and it's well written. There's beautiful romance, there's great quotes, there's action. It's just awesome. I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to see what else like goes on in this world. I'm really excited for book 2. It's pre-ordered and I can't wait to get it. So yeah, guys, I'm sorry that everything looks terrible and that it was crazy. It's my first video. I will learn from my mistakes for the next one. Start a little bit earlier so that way you don't see these rings in my eyes, and kind of figure out a better setup. But yeah, if you stuck around and actually listened to this, thank you, and I will be posting more.